find a way to employ more high quality employees. And now I want to talk about some activities that we do. We conduct workshops to promote our law firms. We do consultancy service, as I mentioned earlier. We also wrote articles on legal magazines or legal newspapers as a way to share our knowledge as well as to build our branding. And you can see here, this is our decision-making process, which I hope that one of my team members can help me with.
Yeah.
Decision-making process.
For decision-making process, our customer are supposed to be M&A startup, and when customer approach us to use our service, we will conduct customer discovery, and then we propose our plan to our BOD, and then get their approval of like providing service or not. And then after we decide to provide service, we will negotiate terms and conditions in contract with our customers, and then we will implement the plan, have to consult customer, provide legal service and kind of things, and yeah, of course we will, after all the service provided, we will close contract, do some archives or settle some like difference.
Okay, thank you, Team Lawyers. Okay, more energetic, please. Okay, last team, let's go.
The stakeholder assessment handlers, what we do is about Angel First, and the role of Angel First in the ecosystem is basically about the supporter. For startup, they support the financial or network, and they also mentoring the startup in the process of growth. And the goals of Angel First, first, they want to make profit. So they want to receive return on investment. And second, they want to improve the investment portfolio so that they can attract more startups, and also want to increase brand awareness as well. And finally, it's about to develop the startup ecosystem. And the challenge that they have to face is the first, startup wants to take control of their shares. So means like investor in Angel Force may find some hindrance in investing for startup. And second is they are hard to manage startup portfolio, and first they don't have due diligence process. And the needs of Angel Force right now, first they want some qualified startup, they want the qualified people, and second they want some partners to support the ecosystem, and finally they want the incentive for them to invest. So the main objective of Angel Force, first they partner with some with the SME mentoring to find startup and provide mentoring. Okay. So next they develop the database about startups, and they invest in startup ecosystem. They also host some meetings with startup and as well as with the member in Angel Force as well, annually or monthly. And they also build the website themselves and make annual report when it's necessary. And about the decision-making process, we divide this process into two main processes. The first is the process of choosing startup. They partner with other ecosystems, other the ecosystem players like SME and we discuss the portfolio that start up with the member of the first, and next the investor to start up on their own text. And about the second process, which is the investing, they hire law firm to help the due diligence process, and next they discuss the deal terms, and finally the investment. Okay, thank you.
Okay, how was the process? It's supposed to be a little bit frustrating. Okay, so we have one more exercise for today to narrow down the challenges and choose which challenge you're going to focus on for the rest of the training. And in order to do that, we will formulate how might we questions. Has anyone heard about how might we questions before? Okay, so a quick intro. So the way we frame problems usually influences a lot the types of solutions that we come up with. In order to do that, I will share a very silly example. So let's say that we have a problem that, I don't know, I live in a residence building and I live on the 17th floor, and my problem is that the elevator is too slow. If you frame the problem like that the elevator is too slow, then you are implying that the solution should be about the elevator. And then in this case, then the solution becomes that, okay, what kind of technology can we use to make the elevator faster? Maybe we can install a new, more modern lift. Maybe we can upgrade the motor to make it faster. We can improve maybe the algorithm. So if you formulate the problem about that it's about the elevator, then you get solutions about the elevator. The same problem, however, can be reframed in a different way. If the problem is actually not that the elevator is too slow, but actually I'm just annoyed to wait because there is no aircon and I have to wait for 18 floors until it comes. I don't know what to do. I have big bags. So if you reflect, it's the same problem, but we just frame it in a different way that is just annoying to wait, then we come up with completely different types of solutions. So in this case, if you frame it that the wait is annoying, the types of solution you come up with is that, okay, the goal is to make, how can we make this waiting time to feel shorter? And then we come up with different types of solutions, something like, let's just put mirrors in the elevator, let's play music, let's install a hand sanitizer, let's install a TV to show some commercials, things like that. So this is also to keep in mind when we're going to frame problems for the stakeholders that you have, because the way you're going to frame the problem will already indicate the types of solutions you will come up with. Okay, so the way we frame problems is using this structure. So first we have how might we usually abbreviate that with HMW. So how might we? Then we use a verb. So help, support, educate, train, network. No, support with a network. Okay, so usually a verb. Then the persona. So law firm, community of entrepreneurs, angel community, accelerator, incubator. So how might we, let's say, help the incubator achieve the goal that they have, knowing that your insight or learning that you gained from the interview that you had. Okay, so I'll give a few examples because this is a little bit vague, but this is basically the structure that we use in how might we questions. So how might we help persona achieve something or do something, knowing that this is the insight that we have. So how we formulate how might we questions. So you already have in this on this board here a lot of insights and a lot of learnings and a lot of pains and challenges also in your persona canvases, a lot of pains, needs, and challenges of your stakeholders. So usually how we do it is that we take one challenge and then we try to identify a few questions, a few how might we questions for each challenge. You don't have to do it for each challenge, you have to come up with how might we questions, but from the different challenges that you have to formulate a few how might we questions. So you already identify some problem areas in the gains, in the goals, in the challenges, in the needs, and also through all these learnings. Now we will try to reframe this into a how might we question. Okay, so let's look at a concrete example. Let's say that the problem that we want to challenge, or the insight that we have, the learning that we have. Let's say that you are a food producer and you conducted some insights on your different target groups, and you found one learning that teenage girls need to eat nutritious food in order to thrive and grow in a healthy way. So this is one of your insights or your learning that you gained from your research. And then we try to identify different how might we questions. So one of them would be, how might we make healthy eating appealing to young females? How might we make healthy eating something which teenage girls aspire towards? How might we inspire teenage girls towards healthier eating options? How might we make nutritious food more affordable? So we have the same insight or the same learning, but we formulated 3 different approaches to this. So for example, this approach has nothing to do with the teenage girl. This approach has to do with the food producer. How can we push the prices more affordable for healthy food? That's more about policy making, for example. This is more about branding. How do you make, for example, this is more about communication. So using the channels that teenage girls, for example, access on a daily basis, how can you use those channels to advertise, let's say, healthier food options? How might we inspire teenage girls towards healthier eating options? This is more about education. So if you formulate the problem like this, your solutions are going to be more around education. And here with appealing is the same, a little bit like here, it's more about branding and advertising and marketing to kind of make the healthier food options more appealing to this target group. Okay, so this is the idea that usually from one learning you will have several how might we questions that you can come up with. Okay, let's take an example that is closer to our case. So let's say that your learning is that accelerators need a network of quality mentors to increase the quality of the startups. So maybe this is one insight that you have. From this one, you can come up with different how might we questions. How might we motivate professionals in Vietnam to be mentors for startups? How might we create a community of mentors that support the startup ecosystem? How might we identify which mentors bring most value? And how might we educate professionals in Vietnam about the startup ecosystem and lean startup process? So same learning, same insight, but we have different questions that we can approach with. From this one, how might we motivate professionals in Vietnam to be mentors for startups? This is more about training. The solution kind of indicates that this is more something about training professionals on how to be good mentors. If we choose this question, how might we create a community of mentors? This is more about how can we organize a group of people within a community that helps each other and engages with each other. If we take this approach, how might we identify which mentors bring most value? This is more about due diligence process. How do you identify which professional is a good mentor or not? How can you create a due diligence process for that? And then how might we educate professionals in Vietnam about the startup ecosystem and lean startup process? This is more about how do we align basically the content given by the accelerators and incubators to the content that the mentors also share. So they're aligned when they communicate with the startups. So you see we have the same learning, but 4 different how might we questions, which indicates also 4 kind of paths that you can take when you come up with solutions. Do you guys have questions about this?
Just to confirm, inside that you mentioned here is our challenge and this and all that we already formed in this context.
Exactly. So let's take one example from you guys. Let's say that, so how you're going to work in groups is that you're going to have a look at your personas again, then you're going to stand up and go there and check a little bit also the insights that you have there, and you're going to brainstorm as many how might we questions as you can. So for example, let's say that I look over this, and I see one challenge is low awareness of startups. So then a question could be, how might we increase the awareness about startups so that law firms have a closer, how do you say, route to get to startups, a closer channel. Competition. How might we, let's take a need, educate market. So here, while I look at this, I don't really know what I mean because it's keywords and you guys discuss about this so you know what you mean. But something like how might we educate the startups so that they know more about the law, services, and legislation in Vietnam, for example, right? So based on different needs, you can come up with many, many different how might we questions. So the task right now is to take a few minutes and look at all the learnings and insights that you have right now. From your notes, from the board, from the persona campus, just recap basically what you know about this stakeholder, what are the pains, what are the challenges, and then rephrase everything as how might we questions, and write down as many as possible. Please, let's do like a recap of how we write post-it notes. Please use marker. Don't use pen because it's very hard for us to read. How we write how might we question, so we write HMW, this is how might we, and then your questions, okay? So write also as short as possible so it's easy for everyone to read and we don't have to like ask each other many times, okay? So take 5 minutes, look around. Every single person in the team has to write as many how might we questions as possible. So for 5 minutes, just keep writing until the timer goes off. Collect all your how might we questions on your tables, and then we're going to group them into patterns. So if there are how might we questions that will repeat in the group, we will group them. So you have 5 minutes to look through your insights, through the board, through your notes, through your persona, and write down as many how might we questions as you can individually. It's okay if within your team you're going to have the same how might we question, then we're just going to group it together. Okay? So I'm going to start the timer now. Yes. If you come up with only how might we question for one insight, that's also okay. This is just to show you that more questions can come up from the same learning. Trong hai cái này trên thấy được đi. Finish your questions? So make some space on your table so everyone in your team can see all the how might we questions. So like arrange them next to each other. And then discuss within your team all the how might we questions. So share the how might we questions you have. And then start grouping them into things that are similar. So if you have the same how might we question, then just put it on top. If you have a lot of how might we questions regarding more like education or something like how might we educate or how might we train, put them together. If it's something related to more like marketing, put them together. So try to identify similarities and then group the how might we questions, okay? So we're gonna follow this process. So first, take a few minutes to analyze with your team. So share the how might we questions. Second, group them into similar themes, okay? No, you the government. You 844. You 844. Yeah.
So our objective is we want to be like we need to earn natural quality water without having
So you design how much you're like a group of designers from 844 who want to help law firms. So how might we help law firms? I don't know, increase their quality, knowing that they currently don't have a diligence process, for example. So I had two groups here. How might we help the newly established law firms? And the knowing that the law firms operate in private technology. Then how might we lower the knowledge gap? Law firms and startups, knowing that startups don't have very little knowledge about educate about what? So how might we educate startups about the laws and regulations? So this one
how might we make lawyers more useful to stuff sharing information?
There are no right or wrong questions, just everything works now.
Lawyers have more clients and stuff.
First, we need to accelerate one so and then we find solution like 3 or 4 solutions. To ask them how many questions that are related to one challenge.
So you shouldn't think about solutions at all. So like the way from the comment question shouldn't be related to the solution. It should open up the way we do it. We don't choose that one. We just open based on the things that we see here. We try to come up with as many comment questions as possible. It can be a few comment questions for the sake of comment, or it can be one comment question for one. The idea is that they didn't time it. Now we discuss the team all the comment questions. We try to move them. And then we're going to decide which question we want to focus on, and then next time we start the for that one question.
So these questions do not necessarily come from this sector.
No, it can be also from the learnings that you have about the offer. About anything.
Similar like how I just have large particular role and role of government. When we start by national networks like lawyers and customers.
So it's kind of the difference is that how the staff will use the jingle or the Okay guys, a few more minutes.
Tư vấn mà là trên trang web của HMW. company, they have to register with the government, and you have to pay fee. So make it we as the government we lower service fee.
So you can formulate it not like that, because then you narrow it down to only the fee. You can say how might we lower the barrier for startups to register, and then you open it up from different solutions. One of them would be lower the fee, and another one would be so the question needs to be specific enough, but also broad enough, so that it doesn't focus on only one solution in the end, next time, but it opens it up for different solutions. For example, how might we lower the barrier is a better formulation than how might we lower the cost.
Quy mà chúng ta đâu phải họ thì đây là họ còn thì là biết đâu
You don't have to think about solutions right now, but when we choose questions, you know that the question doesn't state the exact direction. So you should choose it with the question
hiện tại câu hỏi này thì là mình có thể là trong mục đích của mình bài giải đã sử dụng thêm hay là cái câu start đúng không?
Okay guys, finalize. Okay. Do you have all the questions grouped?
How many have lawyer computing roles? Làm sao mình giúp cho cái
Okay guys. Okay guys. Okay. Okay, last step in the process. So now you group the questions into different themes, into different areas. The next step is to vote. So now we're going to vote which questions you want to focus on. Every single person in the team gets 2 dots. Where are they? Let me give an example. Okay, every single person in the team is going to get a dot like this. Guys, please listen because this is important. 2 dots like this, every single individual gets. You individually, without discussing with anyone, it's quiet, no one discussing with anyone. Look through the questions and you decide which question you want to vote on. The question who gets most votes is going to be the question that the team is going to work on for the rest of the training. Okay? So you analyze the questions and decide which ones you want to try to come up with ideas with next time. Keep in mind, the question shouldn't be too specific. If the question is, how might we create a network? Your solution is already create a network. Your question should be something, it has to be broad enough to give room for many solutions. So in this case, instead of how might we create a network, you might say, how might we facilitate networking or collaboration between different ecosystem players. So choose the question strategically, so it has to be broad enough that it opens up room for different ideas. It has to be specific enough so it's not all ideas that can happen. It's a little bit challenging, so formulating these questions will take practice, so probably now you don't have the perfect questions, but that's okay. And then also choose the question that you feel that you have the skills and the power to come up with solutions. If you choose something like corruption, for example, probably you with 3 people in your team will not solve corruption in Vietnam in 1 week, okay? So choose something that is manageable enough within the skills of your team. So everyone gets 2 votes without discussing. You have to vote, so you can put 2 votes on 2 questions, or you can put 2 dots on the same question if you really want that question, okay? So you can put 1 dot on one question, or if you really want one question. Without discussing. Without discussing.
Nó là cái quyết định vấn đề là mình policy mình sẽ làm giải pháp cái này thì không thể quá là policy là không có thể cái này là đi học video ta sẽ một vài cái không thể I know công ty nó chỉ dành cái đó em thấy coi có điểm một loại người ta tự chọn cái khác là giảm thuế nhưng mà chị đang tự hôn là người ta có hỏi thì khách hàng mà không có quan tâm đâu thì người ta mà không cần phải khách hàng thì chúng tôi đã nó không có lấy hỏi là đấy cháu không bởi vì là mình biết nhau sau này thì bây giờ anh chị xem lại có chủ như không của em không phải sát kia mà nó cũng có cái vấn đề của startup em hiểu là cái đường gì nó có vấn đề của startup không phải có vấn đề của startup không phải là phải phát triển ra mình là therapist
You guys are ready, I see. There's one.
Go ahead, because
That's before.
Đây là tự start nói không biết kiến thức về nhiều về law và regulation làm sao để kéo đến nhiều hơn và education.
Đây là một cái điều điều gì cho những cái ngành nào ấy. Smart cái chuyện đó.
Tao nhận mình educate thị trường. Tao một bên là biết mà một bên là biết nhưng mà một gì là biết có thể ra 1, 2, 3, 4 đấy. For example, wording có vấn đề như thế nào? Em cũng check hai người nhưng Có thể là sau khi mình xác định, có thể là sau khi mình chọn câu này, next step của mình sẽ là trên bài.
Nói chung là mình chị mà chọn chị đọc là chị chọn đi, đâu phải chỉ có hai vấn đề.
Chị chọn chị đừng nói nữa. Nghe đâu. Thì là help community grow sẽ giải chuyện hơn.
Chị không hiểu cái euro của Việt Nam mình nghĩa là gì cả.
Tư cách của chính phủ thì mình là biết mình có thể giúp gì nó dưới tư cách của mình, có gì nữa không? Xong mình thì em đọc là đấy là chỉ cho câu tiếng Việt thế này là làm sao để ta hiểu cùng với tư cách này. Nó có thể dùng từ S. With em yêu with em cô ốc là with
Nói chung là chị thấy chị có hai vấn đề thôi. Một là một cái là xây dựng cộng đồng, với một cái là tìm kiếm thêm khách hàng. Hết phải không?
là startup em cho cái vấn đề để chọn đi.
Chị chọn cho tôi.
Em sẽ đến bước này rồi mình nói vấn đề cái đồng tiền cái vấn đề check lại các vấn đề của trở lại như nào. Chưa chương trình mình là biết mình sẽ chọn cái này là trận đấu cái gì nữa. Vấn đề mà mình sẽ một trong hai cái một cái chọn nhiều cái mình chọn một câu hỏi là gọi là chính sách xuyên suốt cái hỏi đề thế này sao để mình giúp là xem thì mình đấy cho quét một lần sau để quất dễ đâu cái này mình xử chưa cái gì cả bảo mình hành động nó có nhiều khách thì thôi thì mình sẽ làm cái chưa đến nhiều điều nhiều quá điều không ngon nhưng mà có thể ăn để đỡ buồn ngủ, ăn đi cho đỡ nó nước rồi ăn nhẹ người được bổ sung trong rất là bổ sung thì tự nhiên là NST rồi NST là sao dù cái này không biết không là mình có kinh nghiệm và chị đang ở trong camera 3 người có cái đáng định và nó phải kinh nghiệm rồi tất cả cũng phải rồi để các cái việc báo cáo chuẩn là được quality ngon vậy em bây giờ thấy ngon nha gì? Trên đây có gì mà nó đẹp đâu. Xuyên phái chị có thấy cái này không? Cái gì? Chưa thấy cái này không?